The purpose of this podcast is to educate and inform. It is no substitute for professional care by your doctor or your qualified healthcare professional. Never disregard or delay professional medical advice because of something you've heard on this podcast or in any linked material. Guests who speak on this podcast express their own opinions, experience, and conclusions. Dr. Shirley neither endorses nor opposes any particular opinion discussed on this podcast. The views expressed on this podcast have no relation to those of any academic, hospital, practice, institution, or other entity with which Dr. Shirley may be affiliated.
Welcome to FFAB, the podcast on fashion, the art of living, and all things beauty. This podcast is curated by Dr. Shirley Madeir, MD, as the definitive source of holistic wellness through beauty.
May 16th, the Dow Jones Industrial Average surpasses 40,000 points for the first time, and the European Union opens a formal investigation into Meta for potential breaches in online content rules relating to child safety on Facebook and Instagram, violating Digital Services Act. May 22nd, Biden announces student loan debt cancellations of $7.7 billion for 160,000 people. Again, somehow that did not reach me. Also, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton files a lawsuit against Equal Employment Opportunity Commission again and members of the Biden administration to contest the commission's guidance stating that denying employees accommodations for their gender identity is workplace harassment. May 23rd, President Biden announces his intention to designate Kenya as a major non-NATO ally. Also on this day, the Department of Justice, along with 29 states and the District of Columbia, filed a sweeping antitrust lawsuit against Ticketmaster and its parent company Live Nation Entertainment for running an illegal monopoly over live events. I like them apples. May 24th, 2 Americans are killed by gangs while doing missionary work in Haiti during the ongoing crisis in the country. The island, once known as the Gem of the Antilles, has been in crisis for decades. Also on May 24th, families affected by the Uvalde school shooting file a lawsuit against Daniel Defense and Activision Blizzard for creating the DDM4V7 gun and promoting the weapon through the games in the Call of Duty franchise. They also filed a lawsuit against Meta platform social media site Instagram, which is a product used by the gunman. May 25, Anora, directed by Sean Baker, wins the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival, the first American film to do so since The Tree of Life in 2011. May 26, the Indianapolis 500 takes place. May 30th, OpenAI removes online influence operations based in Russia, China, Iran, and Israel due to the usage of AI to generate propaganda and fake content. June 4th, Biden enacts an executive order to temporarily suspend asylum claims processing at the Mexico-United States border when the 7-day average exceeds 2,500. So basically, in the course of 1 week, there could potentially be over 2,500 applications for asylum. June 7th, the Biden administration passes new federal rules that mandate new vehicles sold in the U.S. have to increase fuel economy in automobiles. June 10th, after 17 years of litigation, Chiquita Brands International is found liable by a federal jury of financing the far-right paramilitary death squad United Self-Defense Forces of Colombia in the Antioquia and Magdalena departments of Colombia. What? June 11th, Hunter Biden is convicted of 3 felony counts of possession of a firearm while under the influences of narcotics. June 12th, the National Weather Service issues a rare flash flood emergency in southern Florida for life-threatening flooding conditions only expected once every 500 to 1,000 years. Also on this day, Attorney General Merrick Garland is found in contempt by the House. Also on this day of June 12th, the Oklahoma Supreme Court dismisses a lawsuit by the last survivors of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre who were seeking reparations. June 13th, dozens of hikers are afflicted with an unknown illness during hiking trips near Grand Canyon National Park. And also on this day, 77th Tony Awards are held. Also on this day, Maryland Governor Wes Moore pardons over 175,000 people with low-level marijuana convictions. Also on this day, the FTC sues Adobe Inc., accusing it of illegally hiding termination fees for its Creative Cloud software subscriptions, which includes Adobe Photoshop, as well as in subscriptions for Adobe Acrobat. June 18th, NVIDIA surpasses Microsoft as the world's most valuable publicly traded company after its market cap exceeds $3.34, wait for it, $3.34 trillion. Also on this day, the Department of Agriculture announces a temporary suspension on imports of mangoes and avocados from Mexico after an incident that reportedly caused security concerns for safety inspectors. Also on this day, Regan Smith breaks the 100-meter backstroke world record at the U.S. Olympic swimming trials. June 19th, Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry signs a bill that makes it the first state to mandate that the 10 Commandments be displayed in every public school classroom. Louisiana. June 19th, the Atlantic hurricane season begins. June 20th to July 14th, the 2024 Copa America is hosted by the United States. On June 20th, researchers announced the discovery of a dinosaur species named after the Norse god Loki in the Judith River Formation in Montana. Wow. June 21st, in the North America, heat waves. At least 6 people died due to heat-related illness in the Phoenix metropolitan area in Arizona as temperatures reached 115 degrees Fahrenheit. June 24th, Novo Nordisk announced plans to build a $4.1 billion facility in North Carolina as demand for its weight loss drugs has increased. June 26th, the 2024 NBA draft is held at Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Also on this day, Biden pardons thousands of former servicemen who were formerly convicted of a now repealed military ban on consensual homosexual sex. June 27th, the National Transportation Safety Board announces sanctions against Boeing after the NTSB investigation into the Alaska Airlines Flight 1282 door plug accident. And also on this day, the Department of Justice charges 193 people, including 76 medical professionals, with participating in healthcare fraud schemes worth $2.75 billion, including unlawful distribution of Adderall and drug addiction treatments. Also on this day, a federal jury rules that the NFL violated antitrust laws by distributing out-of-market games through the premium Sunday ticket package. And the first 2024 presidential debate between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump is broadcast by CNN in Atlanta also on this day. The Supreme Court also issues a rule in Moyle versus United States dismissing the case and reinstating the ability to perform exceptional emergency abortion care in Idaho, where a formal ban on abortion is in place. On June 29th, the Biden administration expanded its temporary protection status program to 309,000 Haitians in the country to February 2026, offering them deportation relief and work permits. June 30th, Inside Out 2 passes $1 billion in worldwide box office earnings in less than 3 weeks, the fastest of any animated film in history. July. In Trump versus United States, the Supreme Court rules in a 6-3 decision that former presidents are entitled to absolute immunity from prosecution for official acts that rely on core constitutional powers taken while in office, presumed immunity for other official acts, and no immunity for unofficial acts on July 1st. That's going to have some major repercussions. July 2nd, the Department of Homeland Security deports 116 migrants back to China to deter illegal immigration across the Mexican border, representing the nation's first large charter flight deportation in the past 5 years. And also on July 2nd, Rudy Giuliani is disbarred in the state of New York for his efforts in attempting to overturn the 2020 United States presidential election. Also on this day, Panama and the U.S. signed a deal to reduce the flow of illegal immigration to the United States southern border. July 3rd, at least 26,000 people are forced to evacuate amidst dozens of large wildfires in Northern California. Also on July 3rd, the EPA fines General Motors $145.8 million for excess emissions found in 5.9 million GM vehicles. July 4th, Hudson Bay's company, the parent company of Saks Fifth Avenue, completes a merger and purchases luxury department stores Neiman Marcus and Bergdorf Goodman for $2.65 billion. July 8th, Boeing agrees to plead guilty to a criminal fraud conspiracy charge to avoid going on trial on charges related to 2 fatal crashes involving its 737 MAX auto aircraft in 2018 and 2019. July 9th, the 75th NATO summit is held in Washington, D.C. The Key Largo tree cactus is declared locally extinct in Florida as the first U.S. extinction event to occur due to a sea level rise. That happened on July 9th. July 12th, the manslaughter charges arising from the Rust shooting incident are dismissed. July 13th, Trump is shot in an assassination attempt at a campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, receiving only minor injuries. July 13th to 16th, an intense sequence of severe weather outbreaks affected much of the Midwest and northern United States. July 15th, federal judge Eileen Cannon dismisses Trump's classified documents case. Wow. And the 2024 Republican National Convention was held at the Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee until July 18th. Trump chose Senator J.D. Vance from Ohio as his running mate on the first day. July 16th, Democratic Senator Bob Menendez from New Jersey is convicted on all counts, including bribery, by a jury in a federal corruption trial. On July 17th, the VF Corporation sells Supreme to the French-Italian eyewear conglomerate EssilorLuxottica for $1.5 billion US. And also on this day, President Biden tests positive for COVID-19 and goes into self-isolation. July 18th, Darden Restaurants announces it will acquire Chuy's, Chuy''s, for $605 million. July 19th, CrowdStrike launches a faulty software update which causes IT systems worldwide to go down, with the worst impacts affecting airlines. July 21st, President Biden announces he will withdraw from the 2024 president election. Vice President Kamala Harris launches her campaign for president, receiving Biden's support and becoming the first presumptive nominee for the Democratic Party the very next day. July 23rd, Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle resigns following widespread criticism of her department's actions during the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. July 26th, the 2024 SAG-AFTRA video game strike starts. July 30th, in Florida versus Benefield, popularly known as the Black Swan case, the jury found Ashley Benefield guilty of the manslaughter of her husband, Doug Benefield. August 1st, a Russian prisoner exchange took place, and also the Utah Supreme Court ruled that the state's ban on abortion that has been blocked since June 22 should continue to be blocked. August 2nd, in the United States versus Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin revokes a plea deal with the 3 men who are accused of plotting the September 11 attacks, effectively reinstating it as a death penalty case. August 3rd to 10th, Hurricane Debbie makes landfall in Florida before moving across and affecting the east coast of the United States. In total, Debbie killed 10 people and caused $7 billion in damage. August 6th, recreational cannabis sales in Ohio begin. August 8th, Utah executes convicted murderer and rapist Teberon Honey, the state's first execution since 2010. August 15th, 5 people are charged in relation to the death of Friends star Matthew Perry. August 19th, former Representative George Santos pleads guilty to identity theft and wire fraud. August 19th to 22nd, the Democratic National Convention takes place in Chicago, where Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are officially nominated as the party's choice for president and vice president, respectively. August 20th, federal judge Charles Ralph Simpson III dismisses 2 felony charges against the 2 police officers who were involved in the killing of Breonna Taylor, determining that her boyfriend was ultimately responsible for her death by firing at the 2 law enforcement officials and thus prompting them to retaliate. Yeah, a moment of silence for that one. Also on this day, federal judge Leonie Brinkema rules that people who are positive for HIV cannot be barred from enlisting in the United States Armed Forces. August 23rd, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. suspends his campaign for presidency and endorses Trump. August 24th, the Massachusetts Department of Public Health places several towns on high alert after a patient is diagnosed with mosquito vector Eastern equine encephalitis in the state's first case since the 2019-2020 outbreak. September 10th, Trump and Harris debate for the first time, hosted by ABC News at the National Constitution Center in Philly. September 12th, the first commercial spacewalk is conducted by entrepreneur Jared Isaacman as part of the Polaris Dawn mission, which also includes the highest altitude orbit by a human crew since the Apollo program. September 14th, Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs signs a bill which repeals the state's 1864 ban on abortion. 1864. September 15th, attempted assassination of Donald Trump in Florida, number 2. September 16th, Sean P. Diddy Combs is arrested in Manhattan and charged with racketeering, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. September 17th, a 3-judge panel on the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit upholds the conviction of Ghislaine Maxwell for sex trafficking and underage girls in relation to Jeffrey Epstein. Also on this day, California Governor Gavin Newsom signs a bill which prohibits the replacement of actors with AI under state law. September 18th, food storage container firm Tupperware files for bankruptcy amid declining sales. September 25th, New York City Mayor Eric Adams is indicted following federal corruption charges. September 27th to 30th, Hurricane Helene kills at least 215 people and leaves 685 people missing in the southeast. September 27th sees the greatest number of inmates executed within a 1 week span since July 2003. October 1st, Jimmy Carter turns 100 years old, making him the first U.S. president to become a centenarian. On this day, the vice presidential candidates, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, debate in New York City, hosted by CBS News. October 8th, the Environmental Protection Agency sets a 10-year deadline to replace all lead water pipes in the United States. October 10th, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network levies a $3 billion fine against TD Bank for chronic violations of anti-money laundering laws. October 13th, SpaceX achieves the first successful return and capture of a super heavy booster from Starship, which is the biggest and most powerful rocket ever to fly. October 20th, 5 new civil lawsuits are filed against Sean Diddy Combs in a federal court in New York, accusing the rapper of sexual assault and rape. October 21st, the Central Park Five filed a lawsuit against Donald Trump in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania over claims that he made in the second presidential debate. October 22nd, McDonald's E. coli outbreak. The CDC reports 75 people have fallen ill and 1 person has died after consuming McDonald's Quarter Pounders tainted with E. coli. October 23rd, the Transportation Department fines American Airlines $50 million for violations of disability laws. October 27th, presidential candidate Donald Trump hosts a campaign rally at Madison Square Garden in New York City. The event is widely criticized for its use of racist and misogynistic language, and yet, October 28th, actor Jay Johnson is sentenced to 1 year and a day in prison for his actions during the January 6th U.S. Capitol attack. October 30th, the 2024 Major League Baseball season is in play. The Los Angeles Dodgers win their 8th World Series title, defeating the New York Yankees 4-1. What's up, Yankees? Better luck next time. November 2nd, casual dining restaurant chain TGI Fridays files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. November 3rd, Taylor Swift concludes the Eras Tour in the United States at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, the highest-grossing concert of all time. November 5th, Donald Trump and running mate J.D. Vance of the Republican Party defeat Kamala Harris and running mate Tim Walz of the Democratic Party. November 6th, Biden announces the expedited granting of over U.S. $600 billion in military aid to Ukraine. November 12th, Trump announces his plans to create the Department of Government Efficiency and selects businessman Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to lead it. November 13th, Trump picks Matt Gaetz as his attorney general. However, Gaetz withdrew on November 21st due to ongoing congressional investigations against him. November 14th, Trump nominates environmental attorney Robert F. Kennedy as his Secretary of Health and Human Services. North Dakota Governor Doug Bergman as his Secretary of Interior, and former Congressman Doug Collins as his Secretary of Veteran Affairs. Also on this day, the King Dakar roller coaster at Six Flags Great Adventures, the world's tallest roller coaster, is retired. November 15th, General Motors lays off over 1,000 employees and closes several facilities. Also on this day, the three daughters of civil rights activist Malcolm X file a $100 million wrongful death lawsuit against the CIA, the FBI, and the New York Police Department for their alleged roles in the assassination of Malcolm X. November 15th, Trump names Caroline Leavitt as the White House press secretary for his second term in office, which will make her the youngest ever person to serve in the role as a 27-year-old. November 16th, Trump picks Liberty Energy CEO Chris Wright as his Secretary of Energy, and the first case of clade IBM pox, which is a more spreadable variant linked to the outbreak in Africa, is detected in California also on November 16th. November 17th, Biden lifts restrictions on the Ukrainian use of U.S. weapons for deep attacks inside of Russia, with Ukraine planning out long-distance attacks in the coming days. November 18th, Spirit Airlines files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, and Trump picks Fox News host and former Congressman Sean Duffy as his Secretary of Transportation. November 20th, Trump picks former WWE or World Wrestling Entertainment CEO Linda McMahon as his Secretary of Education. Also on this day, Gautam Adani, an Indian billionaire and the chairman of the Adani Group, was indicted by the District Court for the Eastern District of New York, along with 7 other Adani executives on charges of bribery. November 21st, after Matt Gaetz withdraws his nomination from the position, Trump picks former Florida attorney as his attorney general, Pam Bondi. Also on this day, Jussie Smollett hate crime hoax. The Supreme Court of Illinois vacates the conviction and sentence of Jussie Smollett for his staging of a hate crime against himself due to a violation of his due process rights. On November 22nd, Trump picks hedge fund investor and former Yale professor Scott Bessent as his Secretary of the Treasury, Congresswoman Lori Chavez de Ramir as his Secretary of Labor, and former Texas State Representative and retired NFL player Scott Turner as his Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. November 23rd, Trump picks America First Policy Institute CEO Brooke Rollins as the Secretary of Agriculture. November 27, Jack Smith dismisses his 2020 election interference case against Trump. November 27, the United States helps to mediate the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Lebanon. December 1st, President Biden issues a pardon for his son, Hunter Biden, despite previously pledging against doing so. December 2nd, Elon Musk loses his bid to reinstate a pay package to the tune of $56 billion. Also on this day, U.S. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez becomes the first person to reach 1 million followers on Blue Sky. December 4th, Brian Thompson, CEO of insurance company United Healthcare, is fatally shot outside the New York Hilton in Midtown in what police call a targeted attack. December 5th, a magnitude 7.1 earthquake occurs off the coast of California, being felt hundreds of miles away. Tsunami and earthquake warnings are sent across California, Oregon, and Washington. December 6th, social media platform TikTok's bid to overturn a law which would see it banned or sold in the United States from early 2025 is rejected by a federal appeals court. December 8th, in baseball, the New York Mets signed Dominican professional baseball outfielder Juan Soto to a $765 million 15-year contract. It's the largest contract in sports history. December 9th, police arrest 26-year-old Luigi Mangione in connection with the fatal shooting of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. December 11th, several drones of unknown operators are spotted over New Jersey, with some going over military areas. December 12th, President Biden commutes the sentences of roughly 1,500 people who were released from prison and placed in home confinement during the coronavirus pandemic, and pardons 39 Americans convicted of nonviolent crimes, the largest single-day act of clemency in U.S. history. December 13th, McKinsey and Company agreed to pay $650 million and enter a deferred prosecution agreement with the Department of Justice to resolve criminal charges related to its advisory work for Purdue Pharma on increasing OxyContin sales. including conspiracy to misbrand a drug and obstruction of justice. And there's so much more. That was a review of only some highlights of the 2024 year in the United States. What will 2025 bring? Well, whatever comes, I wish you a new year of love, health, prosperity, joy, freedom, and resilience. This concludes this episode of 15 Minutes of Fab, although it definitely was much longer than 15 minutes. Still, it's the Forever Fab podcast. Thank you for listening, and until next time, stay beautiful and forever fabulous inside and out.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Forever Fab, the podcast on fashion, the art of living, and all things beauty, curated by Dr. Shirley Madeir, MD. Live beautifully and help make the world a more beautiful place.